Let's report this article. This is a good example when female privilege backfires on the individual woman. This woman, I am a woman. I was raped by a woman. And I know what you're thinking. She doesn't. She doesn't know what I'm thinking. But anyway, Rebecca Twinley wrote this. She says, 18 years ago, I was finally raped violently and physically assaulted by a woman who I didn't know in a public place. Wow. This woman was so brazen, she did it in a public place. After I'd escaped, I went straight home and showered. I felt completely numb. I was worried about people I knew seeing me because I had bruised face from her physical assaults on me. What would I tell them? This, by the way, is a real rape victim. You can tell because they're shamed and they don't want to deal with the public. So all you guys who see women proudly touted on, social media with the Me Too hashtag, they're lying. The next day, I told my intimate female partner at the time. She said she didn't understand how a woman could rape another woman. It was crushing. I felt instantly, entirely isolated by her reaction. Of course, because this woman doesn't want to admit that women can be a rapist, and she's willing to sell her partner out. Individual, look, the whole point, not just feminists and tradcons, but the average person, the purpose is to uphold female privilege, not individual women. Sometimes individual women are sacrificed for the greater good of female privilege. So this woman is wasting her time, really. People think of women as caring and nurturing. Many really struggle to accept that they're as capable of cruelty as men are. Well, I don't know if they're capable of, if they accept it or if they just don't want to admit it. When it comes to women raping women, it is an act of violence and control. It is not sex. I disagree with this. This woman was a stranger. She didn't know her, so she didn't have anything against her. She did it because she was horny. And this woman, Rebecca, is now making excuses for her attacker. She wants it to be, she doesn't want to be like the men who are just about sex. They want her to be violence and control. For others, I've told, I think their lack of understanding of what constitutes sex between women, which happens when those involved are consenting, contributes to the difficulty to comprehend women to women rape. Rebecca, being in denial is not the same as not understanding. People understand perfectly. They just don't admit it. My partner's reaction put me off reporting the attack to the police. And she didn't understand. I thought, why would they? I tried to find information or a support service to help me make sense of what happened, but there was nothing. I felt really, really alone. Really, you couldn't phone up the rape line like they do for men and just say, yeah, it was a woman this time. Oh my God. Some years later, in 2010, I joined the University of Plymouth as a lecturer on the occupation therapy program and embraced opportunity to start my doctorate studies. I decided to research women-to-women rape and sexual assault. I knew it was a real problem. I personally knew other women who experienced, but there was an absence of credible research. Why would you need research? You just go to the authorities and say, I've been raped and this is the person who did it. You don't need data. To gather data, I started with a web-based survey of members of the general public, and they agreed or disagreed with 5 statements. Now, without going through this too much, she's trying to gather data because she's going to fight against the tide. There's no way this is going to mean anything to people. She has to fight against privilege. No woman wants to fight against female privilege. No woman wants to admit that women are the equals of men. You can't go around and call men dirty rapists once women are shown to be the exact same. So what it is, look, I don't have really any sympathy for this woman, not because I want her to suffer and be sexually assaulted. It's just that the only reason she's doing any of this is that it affected her personally. And if it didn't happen to her personally, she couldn't care less. She would be all for the status quo. And these few women who suffer it are willing to admit. Let's see, after she talks about women, she asks these questions and they basically say, have you been sexually assaulted? I received 159 responses, none who agreed with the last statement, which is, I do not believe women-to-women sexual assault is possible. Okay. Clearly, the survey was small and not representative of the population at large. Good that she admitted that. Respondents felt that national campaigns and most people they told tend to think women-to-women rape and sexual assault isn't possible. Of course, this is bullshit. As one of the respondents told me, when you ask people about it, there's not many people that think women are violent in a sexual way, which has no basis in reality. Of course they can. Just like women can steal, or they can steal cars and point guns at people. This is nonsense, of course. It's them defending female privilege. Let's see. 59 respondents had experienced a woman sexually assaulting them. Of these, 38 had also heard of women sexually assaulting another woman. The majority of the respondents had heard of women sexually assaulting another woman. The government doesn't report data on rape or sexual assault between women. Of course it doesn't. The government isn't concerned. Like I said again, the government is made up of people and people want to uphold female privilege. And so individual women have to suffer. And for the most part, the government is, let's face it, it's feminist indoctrinated. Like the feminists got their hands in everything. And they do because people are willing to believe women. Most triad con men, most men, let's face it, don't want to hear that women are bad people anyway, no matter what. They definitely want to hear that they're capable of criminal actions. But in an interview for BBC Radio's 4 Women's Hour, I spoke to Yvonne Trainer, CEO of Rape Crisis, who stated around 10% of perpetrators are women. I'd say that the percentage is probably a lot higher because, of course, they expanded the definition of rape for men only. And as you can see, most women don't even go and report. This woman, Rebecca, didn't even report her rape. So the percentage is probably higher. I spoke to 11 people in more depth, doing face-to-face interviews and corresponding with them generally over a 1-year period. Where the main reason stopping them from pursuing prosecution is the legal definition of rape. Yeah, I just said that, didn't I? Right. It's the legal definition is basically that women can't. So they had to eat it up. And so Rebecca, I mean, I'm not even going to read the rest of this. None of this is important. Oh, well, maybe this one. One of the women I spoke to, Kaylee, had been repeatedly raped by an older woman for years, starting before she turned 16. Okay, so that woman was into underage girls. She was a pedo, according to people. She spoke to close friends of hers who worked in the police force who advised her against reporting a rape. Yeah, the average person is in on it. She told Kaylee, this is a minefield. If it was a man, we might be able to get somewhere, but prosecution is unlikely because it's a woman. You're talking about 1% of prosecution rates or something. The police didn't put her off because it was unlikely. The police put her off because they didn't want to demonize the female sex in the way that they demonize male sex. For women to be treated on equal terms with men, that's the equivalent of demonizing them. You're not one of those disgusting troglodyte males. You're one of the pure, noble creatures, female creatures. One responded, Lauren was simultaneously raped by a woman and assaulted by her boyfriend. Lauren did go to the police, but later decided not to press charges as the perpetrators were threatening her. Laurel told me eventually I went back to the police and said, I can't do it. And it was a female police officer too. And she said, oh yeah, well, that's probably a good thing. Just put it down to experience. Wow. You know that old expression, boys will be boys? That's been throwing in men's faces for a long time. They're basically saying people make excuses for men's criminal behavior. And yet, over and over again, we find out that that is projection. It's girls are girls. This is what this female police officer said. And they're saying, yeah, go dust yourself off. The police have basically told her not to go to them. They're not willing to prosecute or even arrest a female rapist. This is, by the way, why the average guy hates the police. Many of my respondents felt they were not heard or met with an attitude that women and women's sexual offending wasn't serious. Yeah, like again, these individual women are sacrificial goats. They can't get justice. For them to get justice would open a can of worms. It would hold up a mirror to society's face, and society does not want to hear it. They doesn't want to look at it. When you try to talk, no one wants to know. She disclosed to a friend and therapist. They go silent, making you feel a freak. Almost all women who shared their stories with me spoke of the lack of supportive services and those who have been sexually assaulted by women. They and I hope they will change. These women hope it'll change so they'll get justice, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to change. It's not going to change because these women themselves, if it didn't happen to them, they would act the same way. They want to uphold female privilege over other women. They remind me so much of guys who suffer divorce, rape, for lack of a better term, and child support, and they come to the MRM to cry when they never cared about men's rights before. But they do now that they're personally affected. These women are the same way. The criminal justice system needs to recognize women rape and sexual assault, and support services need to be made aware of the issue. When I asked why she wanted to involve my research, woman Simone told me it really is just to promote awareness. Okay. Society and the law need to catch up with reality. Well, what is your name? Rebecca Twinley. You have to catch up with reality. The whole of society is not going to backtrack and backpedal just for you and these individual women. What they represent, like you say, they're probably a bigger number than 10%. But the thing is, they're sacrificial lambs. You Rebecca, are a sacrificial lamb. For them to recognize you, they would have to put women on the same level as men, and they're never going to do that. They're unwilling. The police aren't willing. And that included that female cop. That female police officer does not want to arrest women as rapists. So you better come to terms. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.